My talk is titled Stardust and Stellar Consciousness, which is a talk I've been giving for a year or two based on my book, Son of God. But I've also been working on a new talk for this year. I didn't think I'd have it ready when Lucy invited me to give a talk at her premiere edition of the Eternal Knowledge Festival. But I have got a new talk, so I'm going to premiere it today, but lest the Trade Descriptions Act people send me a nasty letter, I'm going to give you a 5-minute condensation of Stardust and Stellar Consciousness. So, really quick, you'll have to put some of this together yourself as I go, but the default mode for humanity was always to recognize our sun as an entity with divine status. And it didn't matter what continent you went to, what century you picked, what culture, this was it. The Greeks, the Mayans, the Egyptians, the Celts, everybody knew this, and it was when Christianity became the official religion of the Roman Empire, that's when a stop was put to this silly idea. But it wasn't science that made us think sun worship was primitive or ignorant. It was the church that absolutely burned that into our culture. They took a dim view of sun worship, as we know. So unlike the ancients, we now view the sun as just a dead ball of gas up there that happens to provide us with the light of life. But science has a lot to say about the sun, and when you look at the scientific information on the sun, it underscores what the ancients felt about the sun. So unlike the ancients, we know that the sun and other stars turn hydrogen and helium gas into all the elements of the periodic table that enable us and this world to be here. So they're creating matter out of those simple ingredients. Unlike the ancients, we know about the sun's key role in photosynthesis, how sunlight takes water and air and turns them into the entire vegetable world, which is a pretty amazing phenomenon. We also know that the very energy of our life is recycled starlight, which has been condensed in plants, and that is re-released in us as life. So is it really that strange to think that the source of the materials and the energy of life might know life itself? We also know the sun's a really complex ball of hot gas. It's got 7 distinct layers to it. They're all providing very different functions within the sun, and there's a hive of electromagnetic activity going on the surface and within the sun. We also know, because there's 4 or more satellites looking at the sun now, that these enigmatic features of the sun, the sunspots, solar flares, coronal filaments, and coronal mass ejections, scientists say well, first of all, they are all highly synchronized. It's a coordinated activity going on, and scientists maintain, or they suggest, that the sun's corona is responsible for these, the sun's corona being the electromagnetic field of the sun that takes up more space than the sun itself. So they say the corona is responsible for these features. When you ask them to tell you about the corona, they say the corona is the most mysterious feature of the sun itself. And it's curious that if you talk to scientists about consciousness and mind, in us, they say it's the most mysterious feature of the human condition. So you can put 2 and 2 together, but I suspect that the corona of the sun is its mind field. We also know NASA discovered 4 years ago a magnetic portal that connects the Earth's electromagnetic field to the sun's corona. It's the diameter of the Earth, and it's a connection that joins up every 8 minutes. And I've got his slides here, don't I? Excuse me. These are all those people that used to worship the sun in different cultures, and I'll just use my hands. There's the sun. That's the 7 different layers of the sun. And these are the magnetic portals. Okay, so we're online with pictures now. So yeah. Now, does that sound like a dumb ball of gas just acting according to gravity and physical principles? I don't know why the scientists don't get it, probably because they'd lose their jobs if they did. We also know that all stars The ancients didn't even know that our sun, most of them didn't know that our sun was another star, or that stars were like our sun. But we do, and we know that stars each have their own individual, astronomers use the term song, this sort of signal that they send out. And they live in communities, stars do, called clusters of hundreds, thousands, or around 10 million or more stars. And like we live in villages, towns, and cities. And within the clusters, they live as couples, as these romantic astronomers call it a binary system. But it's two stars that orbit around each other as they travel through the galaxy, sometimes exchanging gases in the process, I'm told. So they're also, stars are connected to each other by electromagnetic fields. Throughout the galaxy, these stars are hooked up to each other by electromagnetic fields. And it seems that, I would suspect there's function to these. It's not some accidental thing going on. And if scientists were to abandon their long-standing taboo against considering consciousness to exist in anything besides human beings, and some now say dolphins and orangutans too, but if they looked into the consciousness of living stars, they would perhaps not need these curious fixes like dark matter to try and explain why a galaxy holds together like it might be a conscious living organism. So they've had to come up with, well, 95% of it is this stuff that we cannot see. We can see through it. We can't detect it with all our high-tech equipment. But this explains why dumb, dead matter, acting according to nothing but natural principles, behaves the way that it does. And you see them all hooked together with electromagnetic fields. Maybe the reason galaxies hold together is because they are not stupid. And, leaving the science for a moment, when kids draw a sun, they always put the smiling face on it because the sun makes us smile. I'm not keeping up with these slides. Yeah, a nice sunny day puts a smile on your face. And why is that? You can go into a really hot room, switch the lights on. It's not going to put a smile on your face like sunshine does. It's the original good vibration. Nearly over. So we are recycled stardust powered by recycled starlight. And we should really incorporate this into our spiritual consciousness. And recognition of stellar consciousness really changes everything. And I wrote a book about it. It's the only one that's out there. And that's my 1-hour lecture condensed to 5-6 minutes. Okay. That away. Okay, well, the new talk is titled Seeing the Light Through Ancient Eyes. And we're all familiar with Churchill's famous quotation, the history is written by the victors. Well, history is also destroyed by the victors. And an awful lot of knowledge is destroyed by victors at the same time. When the Library of Alexandria was burned down, when the House of Wisdom in Baghdad was destroyed by the Mongols in 1258, we lost a lot of knowledge, which is why we have to have conferences like this to try and rebuild on the scraps of it using our own minds to regain this lost knowledge. Today I'll begin by looking at two major historical figures who had a lot of their history lost before Christianity came along, and yet they seem to have had quite an influence on the template of Christianity, Islam, and Judaism. And, oh, thank you. And both of these men can lay claim to introducing the first supreme God to our culture. And it was the first God that was ethical, had goodness associated with it, and particularly light.